Stay happy, stay healthy, keep it real.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Jess Lewis and I am the founder of Governor Minds. I'm also joined today by Gurdeep and Jess. Gurd, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Just had a very busy week, but there's lots of exciting projects going on. How about yourself?
Same, busy week. Obviously had an event on Saturday and it went really well. Loads of interesting information, loads of lovely moments as well. It was just a really nice vibe there, and obviously I've been working on the retreat all week, but we've only got 2 spaces left now.
Oh wow. So
yeah.
if any of you would like to take the remainder 2 spaces, where can they find it?
Go on to the website. It's ourgom.com, so it's OURG for golf, om.com. You can have a look at what we're going to be doing. You're going to be at the retreat, aren't you?
I am, yes. That's right. And there's going to be lots of amazing speakers talking about mind, body, spirit, how to kind of heal yourself from your issues, but also...
Well, this is going to be like more of a workshop than talks, but obviously there is going to be element of talks as well. So we're going to be doing make your own medicine with herbs. We're going to be doing life coaching with you. We've got a self-healing workshop with Natalie Nairi. We've got lucid dreaming, intense lucid dreaming with Nick Barrett, who we had on the show the other week there, and Graham as well, actually. And then we're having a shamanic cacao healing session. Loads of stuff. This is just off the top of my head. There's all sorts going to be going on.
If you don't mind me asking, what's shamanic cacao?
Cacao is chocolate. And basically, chocolate in its raw state is very, very healing. Now, you might think, cocoa powder is raw, but it's not. Actually, what they do is add loads of sugar to it and they heat it up to such a high temperature that it destroys all of the nutrients. So cacao is just chocolate in its raw state, but cacao works by opening up the heart space. It opens up the heart chakra. So when you meditate with cacao, you can have some really profound moments and breakthroughs and experiences. It's something that I've tried before, and I had an amazing experience. So we're going to be doing that, and we're going to be doing sound healing journeys with gongs and all sorts of shamanic instruments, and didgeridoo as well.
Wow. So if anybody is interested, do check out the event on is it www.ourgom?
If you just type in Governor Minds Retreat or Governor Minds, you'll find the website and all the information on there.
Okay, great. And so today on the show we have a very inspiring man called Clive De Carle, and he has managed to heal himself from arthritis and helps lots of other people heal themselves from thyroid problems and other types of imbalances within their bodies. And how did you meet him actually, Jess?
I met him through a friend of mine called Lou Collins. She runs another radio station, and basically she's interviewed Clive loads of times. So basically I got him on Governor Minds in October last year, and I was just blown away by his information and his knowledge, and I've been wanting to have him back on. Obviously got him back on Saturday, and so I thought, why not rope him into this as well?
Oh. So let's introduce Clive then. Hi, Clive.
Hi, Clive. You all right?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for agreeing to do this so short notice.
No worries.
I really appreciate it. Can you explain to us about what it is that you do and how it came to be that you do this?
Well, I was always interested in health, and when I was at school, I did briefly think about becoming a doctor, but my father took me to see a couple of his doctor friends, and within 5 minutes I realised the last thing I wanted to do is become a doctor. But when I was in my very early 20s, I started going to classes to learn hands-off healing, the sort of healing, energy work you'd call it. And but I never really did anything with that. And I went into various entrepreneurial things, but I ended up in ophthalmic optics for about 15 years. And I learned quite a lot in that field, and it was very interesting. And then I became an organic farmer for about 10 years. And I've done various different things. All sorts of different incarnations of me. But about 15 years ago, I got very, very interested in hypnosis and learned how to do hypnosis, which I found a very, very powerful tool. And but 15 years prior to that, about 30 years ago, I became so incredibly ill that I could no longer work, and I had to give up driving the car. And eventually, I realised one morning I couldn't put my shoes and socks on. I didn't have enough strength.
Yeah. So what happened, Clive?
Well, what happened is that I went to the doctor with a skin complaint. I had spots on my face and I didn't like them. So he said, you need antibiotics. I made a big mistake. I took them and my body just collapsed. I became type 1 diabetic. I got what they thought for months was a tropical disease. I now realise it wasn't. It was a reaction against the poison that for me had been those antibiotics. And I became arthritic. And after a few months, the arthritis was so bad that if you looked at my hands and said, how old are those hands? You would have said, 80. They looked horrendous and deformed, And anyway, after 3 weeks in hospital, they said, well, we don't know what's wrong with you. We don't know what the cause of all these problems are. We don't know what the cure is, but we can operate and give you drugs. So I got taken out of there, and by that time I'd found Patrick Holford, and I went to see him, and he said, you're low on minerals and vitamins, and he gave me some. I took them. I got completely better. All the arthritis just disappeared.
So in what time frame did this happen? So from you sort of becoming, and by the way, was your arthritis in one area or was it in a few areas or?
Oh no, it was in all the joints.
Right. So what time frame are we talking about from you being in this state to you taking these nutrients, these vitamins and minerals, and actually making full recovery? How much time are we talking? Did that take you?
Well, before I answer that one, just bear in mind that this was almost 30 years ago. So Patrick Holford was just starting out, and I would say it took a year, or maybe a little more than a year, for me to get my strength back and for my body to restore to how it was before. But knowing what I know now, and Patrick knowing what he knows now, it could be done much quicker, probably.
It's amazing. I mean, it's so good.
Well, everybody's different. There is there is no one size fits all sort of way of looking at it.
Mm. So basically, so what was it that you did to cure your arthritis? What was it he said that you were deficient of?
Well, there were a number of minerals and vitamins, and we didn't do any specific tests. He asked me some key questions. Those questions would be something like, do you get muscle cramps? And when people say yes to that, it's probable that they've got a magnesium deficiency. Mm-hmm. Then you can ask more questions to pin it down. But basically, like everybody, I was deficient in the whole lot. Oh, wow. Because we all are. Virtually everybody in the Western world is deficient in minerals and vitamins.
Why is that?
It's because, there are two main reasons. One, of course, is to do with chemical agriculture, killing the life in the soil, and so the minerals get used up and not replaced because there's no life left. The only reason the crops grow in some of these places is because of the chemicals. Without the chemicals, there's nothing to grow the crops on.
Clive, actually, while we're on this subject, there's something that I want to ask you on these lines, but we'll come back to everything else that I want to ask you about in a minute. But I found out a few months ago that actually a lot of our fruits and vegetables are grown under hydroponic lights in basically like a factory farm, like a warehouse. Do you know much about this?
Yes, most of the food that you'd get, for instance, in your average market or your average supermarket that's come from England or Holland has been grown in a surprisingly unnatural way.
What does this mean? What does this mean for us if we are consuming? What does it mean, first of all, for the fruit or vegetable that has been grown in this way? What does it mean for that fruit or vegetables, vitamins and minerals? And then also, what does that mean for us if we eat this?
Well, anybody who's been lucky enough to go abroad to somewhere where they have those fantastic fruit and vegetable markets know what it's like to be able to smell every vegetable individually at a distance. You can smell the cucumbers round the corner. Everything has this intensity to it, and the colours are usually sort of rich and dark. If you go into a supermarket, let's take a popular supermarket like Deathco. I've got a bit of a lisp, and I have a problem pronouncing Deathco. In a shop like that, you eat a tomato, unless you've paid £8.50 for each one, that all the regular tomatoes are sort of pink and anemic and tasteless, right?
Yeah.
Because generally speaking, minerals equate with colour. And you see, 100 years ago, say, before really intense hybridization of fruits and vegetables started happening, our fruits and vegetables had the full complement of vitamins and minerals. And the soil hadn't been messed with, it was still relatively natural. And so the food had, let's say, 100% of the copper and 100% of the iron and 100% of everything in perfect balance. But when you look at figures from the government showing the nutritional content of things like carrots, potatoes, that sort of thing, you'll find that the figures read something like 2% of the copper is still in a potato compared to 100% 100 years ago. In other words, they've messed with it genetically so much that all the copper's missing from carrots and potatoes. So, and right across the board, the calcium will be low, the magnesium will be low, and it's startling, absolutely startling, how our food is literally devoid of minerals, because you only need 3 real minerals to grow vegetables.
Yes.
Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, NPK. 3 will grow vegetables that look pretty good. They'll be tasteless and unbalanced and probably end up giving you arthritis or something like that, or whatever it is.
It's scary.
Well, actually, I mean, you certainly want your awareness on full alert. There's no point in being scared, but you want to be aware of what they're doing with food, because it's changing day by day. I mean, when I was young, you wanted Marmite on your toast. You only needed the tiniest amount, because if you put more than a teeny tiny amount, let's say 1/8 of a teaspoonful on it, it would be too strong to eat and you have to throw it away. And it's got weaker and weaker and weaker over the decades. And the current Marmite, you slap it on like thick jam.
God, that's so
it's nothing like the food that used to be the natural, if you like, byproduct of brewing. Now it's all the companies now make products as cheaply as they possibly can.
This is all they care about, really, isn't it? It's all they care about is profit, and where they can squeeze a bit more profit into something, they're going to do it. And I seriously don't think that it's a case of companies using chemicals to physically actually really harm people, but I think it's just that they're using them because they're cheap and they don't actually care what they do to people. But it's something that I wanted to ask you, Clive, and I know it's something you said at Gathering of Minds on Saturday, right? And the reason I'm going to ask you this is because I think it's really vital information that people don't understand about organic vegetables, because I don't know if it was a Gathering of Minds actually, or if it was in an interview that I saw you, but you were saying about what it takes to become organically certified. Can you just talk to us about this, because I think it's so important for people to know?
Some years ago I moved to Spain, and I bought some land which had never ever been used for anything other than natural farming. And I started an organic farm, but I soon found out I had to pay money to prove that I was natural and hadn't messed, people with the chemicals, they could do whatever they like, but to prove I was natural, I had to pay them money for a certificate. Anyway, when the people came round, I said, what will it take to pass or not pass? And they said, well, so long as you haven't put chemicals on for the last 3 years, there's a very good chance that you'll pass right away. But if there's been very heavy chemical use, probably you may have to wait 5 years until we'll pass you. And I don't think they'll ever not pass anybody after 5 years. But the point is that it's taken millions of years to set up all that balance of fungus and microbes and bacteria and viruses and worms and beetles and everything else that makes up the soil. But you can destroy it in a very short time with modern chemicals. You can turn rich soil into a wasteland. And so just leaving it for 5 years, okay, well, maybe the rain has washed through the chemicals, but that doesn't mean that the land is in any way useful for growing food on, because it's being killed. It might take thousands of years or millions of years to get it back again. Who knows? I don't know.
Now, Clive, you started something called Ancient Purity. Do you want to just talk to us a bit about what Ancient Purity is?
Yeah, well, after my experience of recovering from arthritis and stuff, I realised that somebody ought to be doing this, because you go into the health food store, for example, and who knows what to buy. There's so many supplements, take up row after row. It's very hard to know what to buy. And even if you do know what to buy, how do you choose which make is which and what's better than this? And so after I'd been doing hypnosis for a while and using that as my prime, this will get you better modality, I realised that I couldn't do one without nutrition. I just had to address, the emotional and the physical body to get people back to health again. So I started looking into supplements because I realised that some of them were really important. And I was in the same dilemma as anybody. Where the hell do you buy it from? Who do you choose? So eventually I started sending off samples or whatever from all the best people I thought could be potential suppliers. And I used to wait until one of the products actually was so good that I noticed it. And the first one that really hit me hard was fulvic minerals. I've been trying lots of different brands from around the world, and suddenly this little tiny bottle turned up, smaller than the others, and I woke up the next morning feeling 10 years younger. I'm not exaggerating. I just felt completely physically different. And fulvic minerals have got naturally occurring trace elements in, the ones that would have been in all soil and therefore all food in the past, but are now missing. So if you want to put that stuff back, there are two things you've got to do. You've got to have the macro minerals, the big stuff that you need in a physical quantity, like magnesium, you need quite a lot of it. Calcium, you need quite a lot of it. But even in the best multi-mineral, generally speaking, they don't put in the trace minerals, the little teeny tiny ones. And of course, just as you only need a trace amount of those minerals, they're still as important as the ones you need a big amount of. So I would say 99% of multi-minerals on the market are missing these trace elements. And so that's still our biggest and most important product of the lot, the fulvic minerals. And as I say, if you were just shopping in the marketplace to get some good fulvic minerals, it would be so difficult to find them because you can't tell from the lid.
Clive, is that because...
You can't tell by the pretty...
Sorry, Clive, is that because they're not actual proper vitamin and minerals, they're actually synthetic types that have been created?
No, these are naturally occurring. I mean, let me give you an example. Have you ever seen those animal documentaries where a herd of animals crosses some desert or something so they can lick the rocks? And all lick?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those?
Yeah.
Well, so animals know where the good mineral deposits are. You just got to follow the animals, basically. And there are certain places in the world where the mineral content of the soil at that spot is overwhelmingly powerful. And this is what these fulvic deposits are. Fulvic is in fulvic and humic minerals are in every soil everywhere on the planet. Right? They're ubiquitous to all soil. But in certain places, by accident of geology, maybe a mighty river changed course, and now you've got that rich riverbed with all the good stuff in, or maybe there was some bog with lots of good stuff in, and then suddenly, let's say, a volcano goes off, and now it's covered in dust, and suddenly that organic living thing suddenly gets sealed off from oxygen, and it stays organic. You see, what happens with the forest floor, the actual earth itself, is that it represents all life, every insect, every animal, every leaf, it's all there in the soil. But after millions of years, or tens of thousands of years, it changes from being organic matter into inorganic rock, okay? So, but with these fulvic minerals, that never happened. They never turned inorganic because they were sealed off from oxygen, nobody knows for sure, but this is the theory. So when you look at it, this material, what you do is you take the soil, you pour on some spring water, leave it for about 2 or 3 years, and then just strain off the water. And 7 drops of that water is all you need as a daily dose. Right? So it's only mud water, if you like, that's what it is. And but the effects from it can be absolute dynamite. More energy. I've given it to athletes who can measure, they know their bodies and they can measure the gains that they've had from having all the trace elements that we're supposed to have. It's just putting nature back the way it was. And the thing is that it's still alive. Even though this material they reckon it's about 100 million years old, from this particular mine when we get this. The DNA and the RNA fragments are still alive. If you had a gene sequencer, you could essentially build a Jurassic Park in your back garden with the DNA from this stuff.
Clive, I wanted to ask you a question about people who suffer from thyroid issues. What would you recommend to them?
Well, in the past, before blood tests, doctors measured thyroid using temperature. They would say to the patient, before you get out of bed in the morning, throw off the covers and get a good quality thermometer and take your temperature for about 10 minutes. Really take it well, or take it more than once. But this is before you get out of bed. And if your temperature is about a degree or so lower than normal, then the chances are you've got a thyroid issue. And you'll know you've fixed your thyroid issue when your morning temperature is normal. And people don't realize how important normal body temperature is. If you're 1 degree low, then all sorts of problems happen with the body, and lots of people are running 1 degree low. Now, what the doctors did in the old days was they say, if you've got a low thyroid problem or a high thyroid problem, you need iodine. And they used to give very high doses of iodine. But by about the 1930s, 40s, when the medical associations were formed as a protectionist organisation to protect the drug industry and the surgery industry and the X-ray industry, the exclusion of all other type of health regimes, they changed the advice about thyroid. And by the 50s, they were saying, do blood tests, because blood tests cost money. And so the doctors could make money from a blood test, whereas they couldn't make money from the patient testing their own temperature at home. So they stopped telling them about the much more accurate temperature. And now the thyroid tests they do in the doctors are hugely inaccurate, massively inaccurate, hardly worth taking. Better just to go by symptoms. But most people, everybody who goes to the doctor is put on thyroxine, an expensive drug. Had they put them on iodine to begin with, probably in many cases the thyroid issue would have solved itself. If you give everybody what the body needs to survive, it needs about 100 nutrients to survive, all the trace elements that I mentioned, and then things like iodine, salt. We have to have essential fats, vitamin C, vitamin D. And without any one of those, our bodies won't work properly. If we've got every single one of those nutrients, then by default, we ought to have a healthy body.
So anybody who's, say, for example, currently on the thyroid tablets at the moment, could they come off them and go onto the iodine? Or now that they've taken that, there's no kind of way around it?
Well, iodine, if you have enough iodine in your system to begin with, then the chances are that nobody would develop a thyroid issue. But once somebody has developed a thyroid issue, it may be that iodine alone will resolve it, but it may be that they need to carry on with the thyroxine from the doctor. But most people would rather try doing what the doctors used to do 100 years ago, which was to take a thyroid gland from an animal, dry it, and powder it and put it into capsules or a tablet, and take their thyroid medication naturally as a thyroid hormone, in the same way that we maybe drink milk from a cow. You can take the thyroid hormone from a cow, and it's a pretty close mimic, and it's a hell of a lot better for most people than the artificial synthetic thyroxine.
It's interesting.
It is interesting.
But the thyroid story is a very, very, very interesting one, because obviously it's a recent disease, like pretty much every so-called disease. 150 years ago, most of this stuff just hardly occurred. But with thyroid, it did occur, because if you live near the coast, and bear in mind that most of our ancestors would have either lived on coasts or lived near rivers. When you live on a coast, there's lots of iodine in the air because of the seaweed and the sea. There's lots of iodine around. But take the Americans when they went west, when they were moving west, the colonizers. By the time they got to about Midwest, they all got goiter. where their thyroid glands swelled up, desperate to get as much iodine as possible. The thyroid gland grows and grows in size until the neck swells up because it's hungry for iodine. And they realized in America that if they put iodine in the salt or a little bit of iodine in the bread, then the goiter problem would be solved. And up until the 1960s, they were, as a standard thing, offering iodized salt and iodized bread, and there weren't really many thyroid problems. Then, for probably financial reasons and corruption and the usual stuff, they stopped that, and thyroid problems rocketed in America. And of course, if you add chlorine to the water supply, chlorine is a smaller molecular atomic size than chlorine, and it will displace. Chlorine has a smaller atomic size than iodine, and so instead of your hormones being made from iodine, if you get fluoride or chlorine into your system, or bromine, then your hormones can be made, for instance, of fluoride, which is a very, very dangerous thing for your hormones to be made of. And so if you're having a bath or a shower in chlorine, or worse still, drinking it or eating products made with chlorinated water, then it's destroying the amount of iodine you have in your body. Therefore, you're not making proper hormones. Therefore, you might get thyroid issues, might get cancer, might get a whole host of things. But it'll give you a low IQ. If you've got low iodine, you'll have a low IQ. Babies born to mothers with low iodine have low IQs. Babies born to mothers who are chronically deficient in iodine have a problem called cretinism, where they're mentally deficient.
It's funny, isn't it, how it can affect you this much. Clive, let's talk a bit about salt, because obviously we've been told salt is bad, salt will do this to your arteries, but actually there's different types of salt, isn't it? Do you want to explain a bit about this?
Well, quite. Salt used to be worth more than gold to the Romans, and the word salt comes from sal. The word salary comes from sal. To the Romans, they knew that their legionnaires who ate rock salt didn't do as well, weren't quite as strong as the legionnaires who ate sea salt. And the sea salt that the Romans knew was grey in colour, and it was grey and damp, because if you just go to the ocean and you dry some out in the sun and the wind, it's grey and damp. That's how it is. But the shops, the supermarkets, think that you don't want grey, damp salt, that you want fluffy white, dry salt. So to make it fluffy white and dry, they extract all the stuff that makes it grey and wet. Unfortunately, the stuff that makes it grey and wet is just as important as what's left at the end. And so when you go and buy sea salt in the supermarket, we tend to think that it's natural, but it isn't. It's highly, highly processed, like homogenized skimmed milk.
So what kind of reactions would we have to that kind of salt?
Well, I mean, let's just look at sodium chloride, the powdered table salt. That's the stuff the doctors were warning you about. That's so unnatural, just sodium and chloride alone, that it'll make you ill, give you heart attacks. It's hugely bad for you. But the sea salt, the white dry sea salt, has a few benefits, but the benefits of the grey salt are that it lowers high blood pressure, it raises low blood pressure, it will reverse a whole host of health issues. Many people have got better just on salt alone. If you think about it, what's the cheapest mineral supplement of all? Well, as I mentioned before, getting some soil, pouring water on it, straining it off and drinking muddy water. What's the second best? Well, arguably the second best is salt, because sea salt, real sea salt, the grey stuff, has the perfect balance of minerals. Absolutely perfect. And when it's just been dried on the beach, like the stuff that I recommend has been, it's still got the plankton and all life is there. So it's perfect. Many people have got their health back just with salt and good water.
I've got to say, actually, Clive, I got some Celtic sea salt from your Ancient Purity. And I have to say, it's really nice. I mean, I put a little bit on my finger, because I remember you saying it tastes different, so I wanted to taste it, right? So I put a little bit on my finger, and it's salty, obviously, but it's not. It's nice. It's got like a different taste, and I've been using it for everything. I've been cooking it. I'm going to ferment some food, some cabbage and stuff with it as well. It's really amazing. It's so nice. Why does it taste so different? Is it because it still has all of its nutrients in?
Well, yes, and of course the body recognises it on an ancestral level. I mean, you've been missing it all your life. Our ancestors knew how important it was. In other words, phrases like worth is salt. If you sat below the salt, that means you didn't get any salt and you could die. Salt of the earth. Our ancestors knew how important salt was. And it's just recently, in the last few decades, that all the real knowledge of how our ancestors kept you alive forever, before doctors, before houses, our ancestors knew nature and what was good and what was necessary and what it looked like and where to find it. These days, with most of the folklore sort of hardly known, luckily it's not, the knowledge isn't lost, but we need to understand the value of the nettles in the garden, the value of the cleavers, the value of the dandelions, and all those incredible anti-cancer medicines right in everybody's garden, even now, even though, lots of nature has been ripped up and destroyed. There is quite a bit left.
So you know how you were talking about anti-cancer medicines? Can you name a few?
Strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, onions, cruciferous vegetables, garlic, turmeric, ginger, vitamin C. If we want to go further, all the high vitamin C content things. But remember that cancer thrives on sugar, so you don't get vitamin C from a sweet fruit unless it's the berry variety. So the berry sugars that are much kinder and not so sugary, if you like. People don't realise about sugar. Imagine you looked at how much sugar would be in the blood of a normal, healthy adult. Well, in terms of glucose, about 2 teaspoonfuls of sugar, that would what would be normally represented by glucose in the average human. But let's say the average human has Coca-Cola, that has 16 spoonfuls of sugar, so that's 8 times more sugar than would be natural, if you like.
That's fantastic. It's unbelievable, the stuff that we should know. I mean, we don't get told it. Clive, I also want to ask you about colloidal silver, because you've educated me on this, and I think, again, it's something that people need to know about because it sounds like something everyone should have in their cupboards, basically.
Well, it is. This is one of the reasons that my company is called Ancient Purity, is that a lot of the knowledge that is on that website and the products that we talk about are ancient products of ancient knowledge, and silver is a classic example. The ancient Greeks, for instance, and the Romans would always use small pieces of silver to purify water, to stop dairy products from going off. You can put a piece of pure silver into milk, and the milk will last twice as long. Put cheese in a silver box, and it'll last much longer. Silver, for instance, the Greeks discovered that they took finely powdered silver and sprinkled it on a wound in battle, that it would heal up without infection very quickly. Even the doctors now know it. If you go into any burns unit in the world, they use silver in the bandages because it stops infection. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, and it works as nature's antibiotic. Silver is amazing. Most people, along with having a deficiency of every other mineral, have a deficiency of silver.
So with this colloidal silver, I mean, obviously it's in a liquid. It comes in a liquid form, doesn't it? Would you need to take it daily? Is this something that you would take if you just had something wrong with you? I mean, what is the situation?
Well, there are people who take a little bit of it every once a week or twice a week, perhaps, as a just in case. But most people tend to go to it in an emergency should they ever need it, which should be never, obviously, but sometimes one might. I mean, let's take, for example, this is quite a common story where somebody goes into hospital to have a minor operation or something like that, and they come out with MRSA, the flesh-eating disease. Now, the doctors can do nothing about that. Generally speaking, no antibiotics work with MRSA. It's resistant. and there's nothing they can do. So you got this disease, and there's nothing the doctors can do. So the first time I ever was presented with a client who had MRSA, I told them to change their diet a little bit, take a few supplements, and use colloidal silver as their number one thing that they did. And this woman had MRSA for 3 years. She got 5 children, aged 35, and she could barely cope. And I rang her up 6 days later. I said, "How's the MRSA?" And she says, "Oh, it's 95% gone."
Wow.
That's amazing, but to be honest, I'm not surprised. I know how good you are with this stuff, and I've heard so many stories about of people that you've helped, Clive.
Well, it's very simple knowledge that there's nothing special about what I know. It's nothing that anybody can't pick up. It's just really basic stuff they should have taught us at school. We should have been, when we learned about the ancient Greeks at school, they should have told us about silver. They should have told us about their health, what they did for health across the board. Because doctors have the audacity to call their medicine conventional medicine, traditional medicine, and it's nothing of the sort. The folk medicine of old, the herbal medicines. Unfortunately, of course, in this country, they killed the witches who would have had a lot of the knowledge, because it didn't suit church and state, and anyway, that's another story.
Clive, for our listeners, where can they find your products online?
So the company is called ancientpurity.com, and if you look on the website at the Ancient Purity Essentials, basically there are about 12 items which I would recommend that everybody tries. Some of them you may or may not need so much of. I mean, vitamin D, for example, if you're getting sunshine, and hopefully now in the summer most of us are lucky enough to get sunshine, then you probably don't need vitamin D at this time of year, although it's impossible to say without doing a test. I would say 90% of the population are low on vitamin D in the winter, and that's why colds and flus happen. People think that the flu germs come out of their hiding places where they were hiding all summer to come out and pester us in the winter, but it's not like that. The flu and colds happen when you've run out of vitamin D. You haven't had enough sunshine by, let's say, October, and the season of colds starts. It's not a season of colds, it's a season of vitamin D deficiency.
Interesting.
It is interesting, but this is the thing. This is why it's good getting you, Clive, on this show, because there could be somebody sat there listening and they could hear some of this vital information that you have. It's brilliant. How long has Ancient Purity been going for now?
I suppose about 3 years or something.
Fantastic! It's absolutely brilliant. What would you say that if you were going to suggest a vitamin or a mineral to somebody to just try, what would you say to try? Would it be vitamin C, magnesium? What would be the thing that you would say?
Well, it depends. I mean, imagine somebody had just contracted a really serious infectious disease like polio, right? If I wanted to get somebody with a really infectious disease like that back into shape, I would use vitamin C, and I'd probably be wanting to use doses so high, not a gram or 2 grams, but to cure polio, you usually need 50 grams a day intravenously.
Wow. That's amazing.
You can cure polio. Now, if you think about the millions of people worldwide who are permanently deformed and crippled because of polio as a child, when the knowledge that vitamin C in mega high doses cured polio was known about in the 60s, you've got to think genocidal criminality.
Clive, I wanted to ask you about the flu jab. What's your opinion on that?
Or jabs in general?
Yeah, that's true.
Anybody who wants to know about jabs should just go online and put in vaccines ingredients, and they'll see things like human diploid cells. Human diploid cells are from aborted fetuses. Most of the vaccines that are being recommended, like the flu vaccines, the measles vaccines, once you look at the ingredients, you realise they must have been designed by Dr. Mengele in some concentration camp, because nobody in their right mind would mix that many dangerous viruses with aborted human tissue from fetuses.
Crazy.
You know, they're out of their minds.
And then there's mercury and there's...
What?
Oh yeah, mercury's in there.
Wow.
I mean, you know, formaldehyde, is that?
Yeah, formaldehyde.
Which is also enough skincare products.
It's just crazy. I mean, Clive, I mean, what do you think? Do you think this planet is ever going to be in a position where all these things are ever eradicated? Can you ever see that happening? I mean, do you see this power balance tipping the other way towards the people?
Well, look, you know, at the end of the day, even the really horrible people in the world would like their children to go to school in a safe area. There are very few really evil characters out there, but they're fairly easy to spot because they're running the show. And, you know, to get anywhere in government or big business, it seems, unfortunately, regrettably, that a level of appalling behaviour is necessary for you to get in the club. And unfortunately, well, the good news is there's only one problem with the whole world, that there are psychopaths running it.
Yeah.
Unless they have to be recognised as psychopaths, you can make sure you keep them away from the poisonous plants, and you put in people who are loving, caring people. You know, do you know about the U.S. Senate? And at the beginning is why the U.S. Senate is called the Senate?
No.
Because I think the Cherokee Nation had a Senate who made all the decisions, and it was 300 old women.
What?
Because they believed that the 300 old women would make the right decisions for their grandchildren and wouldn't send them off to war.
Very true. Clive, you know how you were talking about how you managed to clear your arthritis? For anyone who's suffering from arthritis at the moment, who's listening to the show, what kind of minerals would you recommend?
Okay. Well, number one would be magnesium. And the types of magnesium to go for, we sell it on the website very cheaply, much cheaper than than you can buy brands in the health food stores. Magnesium chloride, we sell it under the name magnesium oil spray. It's not really oily, but that's how the trade calls it, magnesium oil. And you rub lots of it straight on the skin. It goes straight in through the skin. And if somebody's got arthritis and they rub some on the painful areas, they'll almost certainly notice relief from pain within 5 minutes. It's that quick.
Actually, I have to agree there, because I have, as you know, an arthritic condition in my neck, which I took some magnesium this morning because it was giving us a bit of it was aching a bit. And I put the magnesium on, I rubbed it in. It's a magnesium that I got from you, from Ancient Purity. I put it on, I massaged it into my neck, and within 10-15 minutes I had no pain.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, it's criminal that the doctors don't know this.
And why do you think is that? I mean, is it just that they're so caught up in wanting to make money from the sales of the pharmaceuticals, or is it just that they're not learning this information at university? What's going wrong here, Clive?
Well, you've got to look at, always follow the money. Who funds the universities and the medical schools? It's the pharmaceutical industry. So the pharmaceutical industry is going to teach them about pharmaceuticals. They're not going to teach them about how cheap salt is or how cheap everything that we're talking about is. Because, I mean, look at iodine. How much does that cost to run? It's less than £1 a month. You know, we sell a bottle for 18 quid, and it's going to last you a year and a half. So the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, can't make money with you spending at the rate of £1 a month.
I mean, it's so good that people have the option, though. But we just need to tell people. We just need to get the word out there, really, don't we?
Well, we do, because the EU and the health industry, the medical profession, the illness industry, wants to shut it all down. You know, it used to be able to buy iodine in the chemists. It's very hard to get now. Most herbs, I used to be able to tell you what herbs would cure whatever disease. But now they've changed the law, making health claims about them illegal. Whereas in the past, I could give you a herb and say, look, this will cure X, Y, Z. I get sent to prison for even putting on my website that XYZ herb could cure this XYZ.
Yeah.
They want to regulate everything so that the only thing you can do is to get it from their guys at a big expense. It's like the light bulb scam. They took away our light bulbs, good old-fashioned ones that warmed up the house in winter with all that heat, replaced them with cold light bulbs with a horrible light, which if you break them, fill your whole house with mercury, because they're mercury vapor. If you break one of those modern light bulbs over a rug, you've got to throw that rug away. There's no getting the mercury out.
Really?
Or it'll kill you slowly. Yeah. So each time you throw a modern light bulb in the bin, and then it breaks, mercury is being released into the water table.
Oh.
Wow.
Is there any hope at all for our future?
There's masses of hope. There's masses of hope. People need to wake up that there are answers for everything. There's free energy happening right now. It's out there. Anybody who wants to know, just put Bloom Box onto YouTube, and you'll see that's one of hundreds of free energy devices currently in operation right now. There's ways to desalinate water. Lockheed Martin, the armaments company, have shown how to desalinate water at almost zero cost. Other people have done the same. There are answers to every single problem. Within 1 year, you could have effectively solved the world's problems. I mean, imagine we changed currency globally, and everybody can use the currency except governments. So we don't have to have a violent revolution. We just change currency, but we don't let them play the game. They can't use their money anymore, so we changed it, and they haven't got any. And you say to all the soldiers in the world, we're going to pay you triple. Come home, come and grow some organic food, and we'll pay you triple. Just leave the guns where they are.
Yeah.
So interesting, Clive. Thank you for joining us today. It's the end of the show, unfortunately.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about all this interesting information. I mean, it really is vital that people take notice of what you're saying here. And actually, people can do some research as well themselves.
And what was your website again?
The website is ancientpurity.com, ancientpurity.com, and I do a number of broadcasts. The most popular one probably is called The Health Revolution, and if you go onto YouTube and put in The Health Revolution, there are lots of episodes, and each week we tackle something like how to resolve blindness, how to resolve autism, whatever.
Wow.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for that, Clive. Do have a check of that, everybody. The information that Clive is putting out, that obviously we had to condense them down into a short show. But do have a look at what Clive's got out there. It's very, very, very interesting information. Thank you so much, Clive. We'll speak to you soon.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Stay happy, stay healthy, keep it real.
So what did you think of that interview with Clive?
Well, I'm very, very pro Clive. I love what he's doing. The man is a fountain of knowledge, and he's helping a lot of people. I mean, I wished we could have had him on longer, really, because I would have got him to say some of the case studies of the people that he's helped. He's helped people come from the brink of death, back to health. Yeah, he's amazing. And I've got a lot of respect for what he's doing. So it was brilliant to have him on the show. Information.
Yeah, especially about the thyroid issue. I had no idea that you could cure your thyroid with iodine.
Well, I mean, I think that all illnesses are just symptoms of a deficiency. This is what it's seeming to be the more you sort of delve into this stuff. Because I used to think many, many years ago, before I embarked on this journey, I used to think, but how can a vitamin cure a disease? But actually it's not that, it's just that it's correcting the imbalance kind of thing, or the deficiency, so it's clearing up as a result. So it's just all about getting that message across that he's doing, and yeah,
and also realizing that medicines are only for temporary use, and also if you carry on using them, there are going to be side effects. If you look at the back of the packaging, every single medicine that you would ever take has a side effect, but yet we don't really question that. But we question the natural stuff. Yeah. It's quite worrying, isn't it?
Because people think it's too good to be true, that's why. People think it's too good to be true, and it's all myths and all wives' tales. But you know what? all tablets do is cover up the symptom. They don't actually clear up the problem at all. And people spend so many years on medications and then like more medications to counteract the problems they've encountered because they've been on that medication, and then more medications to cover up the effects of the toxicity in the body because of those medications, and it's a vicious circle. I know someone that takes 11 different tablets a day, different medications, 11.
I used to work in a dispensary when I was at university, and the amount of medicines that we would have to dispense for elderly people was shocking. You had more than 11. You had probably about 15 a bag. And the reason why most of them were taking them was because one, like you said, one created a side effect. And then another, and another, another. And then before they knew it, they had dementia. They had no idea where they were. And it's just a worrying system. And we need to change this.
Yeah. And that's why it's good we have people like Clive going around, and people love Mick. I've been in mind. I've had him on twice. You've seen him once. Honestly, right, it was like Graham Jevon all over again. Clive did his talk, right, and obviously loads of people were interested in what he had to say. He's an interesting guy, and at the end I had to obviously close the event, and so I had to say, really sorry, I'm gonna have to cut the questions off. And I was like, but Clive will be available to talk to, and the whole room flocked to him. I've got a photo of it. It was funny, man.
No,
I nearly got trampled.
Oh, he's an amazing guy. Well, that's kind of the end of the show for this week. So if any of you have missed any previous shows, then you can find us on our page, or you can listen on demand at www.ukhealthradio.com. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay happy, stay healthy, keep it real. You can follow us on Twitter at UK Natural Health, or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Natural Health Journey.